related to confidentiality in the investigation, and then bring that document back to you.
When would you, how much time would you need for that?
Till November.
November.
Does my notion?
Ms. Grimes, did you include my list that you said?
Yes, I would include Mr. Dingfelder's list of various different requests. The only outstanding issue is on the appointments and how we would deal with that. I've heard several different proposals, and again, I don't want to get into the legal issue associated with it, but it's you know, it's a legal issue under the charter about who has the authority to make all the appointments, or to structure the appointments, I should say. So that would just be kind of something that Mr. Shelby and I would have to discuss offline.
Which I'm happy
Chair.
to do, and I think, Mr. Carlson, if I may just opine, and
Could I just, based on your, Mr. Shelby, based on your feedback, if I could restate the motion without the last half of the last sentence, and see if I could still get a second. But I think that it sufficiently describes what Ms. Grimes just described that she's going to do. But if it doesn't, one of you can let me know how to edit it. So here's the motion restated.
Okay, well, frankly, this, sir, and I'm sorry to interrupt, forgive me, this audio thing, I just have to get used to. But the way, frankly, Ms. Grimes articulated it, Mr. Carlson, unless you have any objections to what she said, I thought it was very well articulated, and it certainly gives clearer direction and less amorphous. So either she, A, can re-articulate it, or you can re-articulate it, or you can adopt what her recommendations are as part of the ordinance, and the clerk, of course, would have to be able to incorporate that, if that's proper. Is that acceptable?
Brian, could I just read this? Could I just read this again, and you tell me if it seems like we're saying the same thing, but if not, I'll edit. The motion is, I would like to make a motion that the city attorney's office and the city council attorney take into consideration the public comment, expert comments, and comments from city council to develop a new draft to be presented at the November 19th meeting.
May I ask the city attorney if that comports with what she understands?
No, that's just it. As you mentioned earlier, Mr. Shelby, it's too amorphous. I don't know what changes should be included. We have a working draft. We received comments from the PBA. We received comments from the ACLU. Mr. Dingfelder identified 6 or 7 other changes, and then there's the outstanding issue of the appointment. And so if I could move forward and address the PBA's changes, the ACLU's changes, Mr. Dingfelder's changes, and leave outstanding the legal issue that Shelby and I would need to discuss on appointments, and then bring it back in 2 months.
Yeah. Okay. Take into consideration comments from the PBA, the ACLU, and
in their email to me. There was a list of 10 changes in their email. The ACLU's changes in their email.
And
Bill, why don't you just adopt Gina's motion, suggested motion, just adopt it by reference.
okay, I propose Gina's motion.
How about you move to adopt the motion as articulated by the city attorney? And certainly when the action agenda comes out, you can confirm that is your and council's intent. I would advise council to each of you do that, obviously. And certainly if there's an issue there, it can always be revised, but at least I believe that the city attorney clearly articulated the job ahead of her. And
yeah, I think if you could just give me a second to read this, I think it says I would like to make a motion that the city attorney take into consideration comments from the PBA, the ACLU's 10-point draft, and Councilman Dingfelder's comments to develop a new draft to be presented at the November 19th meeting.
Okay, that is the motion.
I just want to see if that, Ms. Grimes, is that within, see, the other question I have, and forgive me for asking this question, but there was a lot of dialogue from city council members who took positions and made policy statements, and I'm wondering what weight does any of that have today? What weight does that have as you move forward?
Vera, Veer, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
The way, and thank you, Mr. Chair, the way I envision it to answer Mr. Shelby's question is that this motion moves forward all the items that we agree with. It engages further dialogue on those issues so that we can get something that we can pass that moves this issue forward collaboratively. So I don't think that motion, unless if I'm reading it wrong, would take the exceptions that we have on very small issues. Let me be clear. I think this city council, I think all of us agree with 75, 80% of the issues with the administration as it applies to the proposed ordinance. There are certain issues that some of us take exception to respectfully. We're going to talk about those. But, you know, I think, unless if I'm reading this motion wrong, it puts forth that 80%. Let's talk about the 20%. And November 19th, let's vote on something. Moving it forward, unless if I'm reading it wrong. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I agree with what's been said, and I think the motion made by Mr. Carlson does not mean that November 19th, we're going to vote on the final draft of an ordinance to be put forward. I think it's a cleanup of what we've heard today to make sure that all those issues were addressed and brought before this council. And if anything else is needed, then you have a second one to clean up. You can't do this overnight, and you can't do it. This legal department has been working overtime and doing the right thing for the city. However, we asking to get it something, and when the city attorney tells us, not because she doesn't want to do it, because the overwhelming amount of information that came in today to us, to digest that, to go back to everybody, to put it in a final ordinance, would not be done in 60 days. And I believe Mr. Carlson refocused it and sent it to 60 days on what a smaller amount of things were said today, to put that into perspective, see how the final draft looks on part of it. There's still another part that has to be addressed. And my opinion is, I don't think we're going to be ready to have a final draft or an ordinance on November.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Goose.
Mariner's right. I mean, Ms. Grimes, they're working overtime on this the CRB, and I applaud their efforts. They're really working, trying to get it right, to make sure that everyone's happy. Again, I said everyone's not going to be happy. My only point right now is that with Ms. Grimes' team going back, trying to clean up, trying to make some more concessions or so forth and so on to bring to us, but yet we may still have the issue of the charter issue with her, Mr. Shelby, with that information. My concern is she bring it back and the other issue isn't worked out. I'm just trying to see how that's going to go. So I think it's probably going to take a little bit longer. Hopefully it doesn't. But again, even if they come and work it out, I think the other 20% that Mr. Beer is talking about, it's going to be that other 20% that charter amendment, because I think at the end of the day, some of this is going to wind up having to be in a charter amendment. Because again, we're talking about these different boards, who has power, who doesn't. I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to us making a motion eventually about the charter. I yield back, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I was trying to get your attention over here.
Yes, sir. Councilman Dingfelder.
Ms. Grimes, the one thing I wanted to stress, that's an appropriate word because a lot of this is stressful for everybody, but especially, I know you've been putting a lot of hours into it, and we appreciate it. And that's the first thing I want to stress, is that we do appreciate it. We appreciate everybody putting hours into it, including the ACLU and the community, et cetera. But the other thing I wanted to stress, and Ursula, you too, I know you've been putting a lot. The other thing I wanted to stress is the fact that, and I think several council members have mentioned this, that just because we're tweaking this, just because, you know, we started this X number of months ago, 4 months ago, talking about a collaborative process. But the mayor and the city attorney have collaborated together to give us a lot of these proposals, and we've given some feedback, and now we're giving more feedback. And that is a collaborative process. So I just want to make sure that you know that we appreciate the progress that the administration has made, the TPD has made in making these offers and suggestions. And now we're making some additional ones. And that's what collaboration is all about. So I don't want you to think that the administration is not appreciated. The Mayor Castor is appreciated. I hope she's listening. And TPD is appreciated it. Everybody involved appreciated it. And let's continue to move forward. I think this was a great meeting. Let's continue to move forward in the spirit of collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson has a motion. Do we have a second?
It was seconded by Miranda.
Second by Councilman Miranda. Let's get a roll call vote.
Can you read the motion, please? This is Gina Cron.
Sure, hang on. I would like to make a motion that the city attorney take into consideration comments from the PBA, the ACLU's 10-point draft, and Councilman Dingfelder's comments to develop a new draft to be presented at the November 19th meeting.
Under staff
Thank you.
report. Thank you very much.
Under staff report.
Motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Miranda, roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Chair.
okay. Yes,
Mr. Chair, sorry, I just want to echo what Mr. Dingfelder just said. If the mayor was not collaborative, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. We would be having a charter flight. And so I want to very much say I very much appreciate everything that Gina, Ursula, their whole department has done, and also that the mayor is engaging us collaboratively. And also I want to say that we appreciate the police department, and obviously we've included the PBA here. So I just want to thank everybody. This is it sounds tense at times, but the city is working together collaboratively, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you very much. We go on to the last item, and I think, Vic, if you're on the line or if you're ready.
And
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chair, this is Vera. I have to duck out for 25 minutes for that meeting. I shall
It's
return.
okay. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Point of order.
Yes, Councilman Dingfelder.
Unless what Mr. Bide, I don't even remember what he's speaking on, but I think it's late in the afternoon and we have to start up again at 5 for a
We have
very
over
long.
20 items tonight. Remember that. We start at 5, so we have a long night.
I think unless it's totally pressing and time sensitive, I would apologize to Mr. Bide and respectfully request that we continue his item and adjourn this meeting as quickly as possible.
I just had it in my hand.
He did send a presentation by email, I believe, that we can all look at. So, we will have some information. We can review it ourselves. So it's if Mr. Bide is on the line, if we could continue this to perhaps the next workshop is pretty busy. In October.
Mr. Chairman, Martin
Yes.
Shelby, may I ask a question? May I ask a question
Yes.
of the maker of the motion? I believe this was Councilman Citro's motion. And I
Yes.
wonder if he has a position that he'd like to express.
Councilman Citro.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I approached Mr. Bide about asking him to explore the future needs of parking within the city of Tampa, not necessarily for downtown, however, within the residential neighborhoods, and how we are going to cope with parking in the residential neighborhoods. This is a discussion which we will have to have at some point. I do understand that we have a very busy evening, and I thank Mr. Bide for being prompt on my request. So if it is okay with Mr. Bide to put this on hold, then as the maker of the motion, I'll be satisfied with that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do you have a future date, or you just want to leave it out there until we
Yeah,
schedule at a later time?
Mr. Chair, the idea to postpone this is not mine. However, if Councilman Dingfelder has a future date, I'll take that into consideration.
Mr. Chairman, Martin Shelby, if I can, looking at your calendar, your next workshop date, I believe you have one
In October.
in October. And you also have a night meeting that night. So I bring that to your attention too, looking at your calendar. That is a major land use night. You have
Yeah.
you have no workshops in November or December. Your next regular workshop is on January 28th of 2021, unless you want to schedule this for a staff report and set some time aside to be able to discuss it. But it sounds like if it's the council's intention to have it to be a workshop, it would unfortunately have to be in January unless you want to add additional dates to the meeting schedule to council's calendar.
I mean, we can put it under staff reports on a regular council session, but it's up to the maker of the motion.
Mr. Chair, this is Vic.
Yes, sir.
Vic Bide, Director of Mobility Department. Either alternative works, whether it's staff report or the motion, and I'd like to reflect what Councilman Citro said, that this is a discussion that is worthy of having, how growth is going to impact our residential neighborhoods. But in my estimation, it's not urgent at this point.
Okay, Councilman Citro, you're, however you wish to proceed, Councilman Dingfelder.
Mr. Chair, no offense to anybody, but this conversation has taken longer than the report probably would have. I will feel comfortable if any time in January would be fine with me. Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to reschedule this item then for the January workshop? I'm
So
pulling up
moved.
the date. That would be January 28th. We have a motion from Councilman Goode, second from Councilman Miranda. Is there any objection? Any objection? Without any objection, by unanimous consent, this has been moved to the January 28th workshop session at 9 a.m. Okay, that concludes the agenda. Would you like to do new business now, or can you hold it until tonight? Anything
Hold it till
pressing?
tonight.
Okay. All right, can I get a motion to receive and file all documents?
We'll move to receive and file, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion to receive and file from Miranda. Who's the second?
Second.
Second, Carlson.
Second from Councilman Goode. Any objection? Okay, hearing none by unanimous consent, we've received and filed. We're adjourned. We will be back at 5:01 this evening, or this afternoon. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.